Do I have to? Oh, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm here to share with you my adventures with Rails Girl Summer of Code. My name is Pilar, and pretty much everywhere on the internet, I'm out there. There's a lot of Pilar Huidobros, so maybe Pilar Andrea Huidobro, if not Super Princess Pilar. I'm actually based in Austria, but I think this is a joke you'll only enjoy if you were here yesterday, but I'm actually from Chile, so feel free to talk to me about this. I usually work with C++ and Ruby projects, but I pretty much love every programming language. I really enjoy using JavaScript as well. So yeah, what is Rails Girl Summer of Code? The name is a little bit misleading because it's not only Rails, but basically it's a nonprofit program designed to get women into open source. And, you know, why would we want to do this? There are not a lot of women in open source, and by not introducing them to open source, we're missing out on such a huge amount of contributors, potential contributors, right? So this is achieved by them opening up applications for people as a team, and for maintainers of projects, open source projects, to submit their project to be worked on by these teams. Many teams are sponsored and do receive a stipend, but there are also volunteer teams. So the team that I was with was myself and Shelly, who is in the audience today. She just waved. Our wonderful coaches, Ramon, Aaron, Clemens, and Igor, who is also in the audience today. Our great mentors, Ola, who's in the audience today as well, and Jan, and our wonderful supervisor, Marcus. And together we were Team Tessie. So just to explain it a little bit, because I get asked this often, the students work through a self-led program. We set our own goals, and we work on an open source project. The mentors are usually the maintainers of those projects, and they guide us, you know, recommending issues, recommending exercises to achieve those goals by the end of the summer. The coaches are basically our tech support, so if we run into anything we don't understand or we don't know or we get stuck somewhere, that's where they come in. And the supervisor's a bad word, actually. They're not project management people. They don't hound us down and make sure we meet deadlines. They just check on our progress and make sure that we're making the most out of this summer. So, you know, I mentioned earlier that it's called Rails Girl Summer of Code, but there are a lot of different projects. And in the months leading up to the project, Shelly and myself learned a lot of Rails, expecting it to be Rails for us. And while we did know what we signed up for, we had never even written a line of JavaScript before. So that was quite a challenge. So this is unrelated to JavaScript, but the first thing that we learned to do on our first day, and it was very important for us because we've never used Slack before, was to program our Slack bot. And this is just me completely amazed that Slack actually recognized hex colors, because I was sending them to my teammate. You know, these are the colors of our logo, and this is the little Slack bot, you know, first thing that I made, that when you would say awesome, it would give you a nice GIF of Big Boss doing the internet kid GIF. But the first obstacle we faced, which I mentioned earlier, was JavaScript. And as Flaky mentioned yesterday, there are not that many great resources for beginners in JavaScript. So we went with the classics, JavaScript for cats. Personally, I use JavaScript for kids. I know this sounds childish, but I really enjoyed, you know, the illustrated format, and it's really simplified. And I think it's so inviting and so inclusive to use simple language when teaching programming. But by far, my favorite resource that we used was a workshop that we did called JS in Your Jammies. And it was held by Katie Cunningham. And it's a lot like PyLadies Remote. It was just her on her free time on a Saturday, inviting people early in the morning to learn JavaScript from the zero to quite advanced, I would say. We didn't actually do stuff that was that relevant to our project, but I remember she taught us randomizers, and I was super excited because I am a huge video game fan, and I thought, hey, this could be useful for video games, which was unrelated to our project. So the next big hurdle that we faced was Git, and I think this is one that almost every newbie faces. The funny thing is that, I mean, we all know there's Git aficionados and Git rebels, people who would rather not touch it with a 10-foot pole. And the really cool thing is that we had a great variety amongst our coaches. So one of our coaches is a huge, huge Git aficionado. So with our first project, which was a to-do list, we actually did not do the newbie mistake of making one huge commit, which is disastrous and then nobody can understand. He actually had us commit feature by feature, if not function by function, and if not line by line, which sounds excessive, but actually it taught us to get comfortable with Git. And by far the most terrifying experience that I had as a newbie, and I'm sure a lot of us experienced when we were learning, was my first rebase. So I had been given instructions to do a rebase, and I'd never done it before. I didn't know anything about it before, and I don't know why I decided this is a self-led program. I'm gonna do it by myself. I can do this. And about 5.3 seconds later, I run from my co-working desk, pick up my laptop, and I'm like, Aaron, please help. I don't know what I did, but I think I just deleted all of Hoodie's code. Please help. And this was our coach, who was not such a big fan of Git. So his reaction, very much like my reaction, was, oh my gosh, just throw it in the trash. Just throw it away and just reclone everything. It'll be fine, it'll be fine. Nobody has to know. I had done a lot of work that day, though. So I conferred with another coach, our Git aficionado coach, and he led me through it. And that's one of the really cool things about having such a wide variety of coaches. We had a lot of one-on-one time with one of our coaches who was very strong in JavaScript and learned a lot through him. And we had a coach who was great at Git. So you don't have to be a master at everything to coach. It was really cool to learn so much. So I think this one will be kind of a relatable one. The next hurdle that I personally had to face was Angular. I was super excited to learn this. I had heard so much about it, and I felt like this was going to, take my JavaScript game from pretty good to pretty fluent. So I looked around. There's a lot of really great resources, and I decided to go with Codecademy's course, and this was super fun, and I think it took me like a day or maybe a day and a half. I'm not trying to brag, I just have no idea how long it took. So I got the nice certificate screen, and I was so proud, and now I had to refactor an app that already existed in Angular. And then Angular 2 came out, and that ended my adventures with Angular because I decided, nope, I'm not gonna, I just did the Angular 1, I'm not gonna do the Angular 2. And this is just a side note because I know there are some Rails Girls students in the audience as well, and I think this was a really funny thing. In the program, you have to write a daily log on what you do and what you learn, and I was looking through them to reminisce and to prep for this talk, and by far the best daily log we had was on our 14th day of work, where we were doing very, very serious work, and Shelly writes to me on Slack. I'm sure you all know Giphy, but if not, you just write /Giphy and Word, and it'll return a little GIF with that keyword as a tag. So Shelly sends me /Giphy Mine. And this guy appears, and we're like, okay, that's fine. That's pretty weird, but it's a fangirl who put /Giphy Mine. But no, it happened again. and again, and again. And no matter how many times she would put /Giphy Mine, it was this guy everywhere. And we were learning, we're inquisitive, so we're like, what is up with this? And we went to Giphy, and there are other GIFs, but for some reason, you use Giphy on Slack, you put /Giphy Mine, and you get this guy everywhere. So we actually wrote to Giphy, and we said like, hey, something broken with /Giphy Mine? And it's very sad, but the mystery was never solved because we never actually got a reply. But by the next day, they had fixed it, and you got more appropriate /mine. So I don't actually have a slide for this. I'll leave the cute raccoon on. Why am I telling you all of this? Because Summer of Code, Rails Girls Summer of Code, has such a high success rate. Women get into tech and stay in tech, and they stay in open source. Like, personally, I'm not still working on the same project as I was in the summer, but I'm working on loads of different open source projects. So if there is an initiative that is getting people, diverse people, into open source, this has to be a good thing, right? I mean, I actually came from biology. Shelley came from being a kindergarten teacher. Some of the other people that year were architects, fashion models, stay-at-home moms. We come from everywhere, and we all came into tech, stayed in tech, and stayed in open source, which is amazing. So I think one of the important things to learn is, how can I become more than just me and my tools? And my first recommendation for this would be to coach. I know that teaching is not for everyone. Not everyone knows how to teach, and everybody learns completely differently. Like, there's no way to pinpoint how people learn. But that doesn't mean it has to be bad. If you're volunteering to coach, that's already a win. And please don't think that my first time, I've coached for 2 years now at Rails Girls workshops and at different workshops, and I'm like a mentor at my university as well. And please don't think that my first experience went swimmingly. Actually, my first time coaching, I had attended Rails Girls St. Pölten in 2014. St. Pölten being a little town in Austria, by the way, well, a big city for Austria. But I had attended the workshop and knew nothing. This was my first experience with programming at all. And a couple of months later, I actually went back to coach. And for that first time, they sent us a guide, and it had things like, what is MVC? What is scaffolding? All these cute things that were daunting for me, and I thought, oh my gosh, okay, I'm gonna memorize every single word on this guide. I'm gonna be super prepared, and I'm gonna blow those students away. I'm gonna be the best coach there ever was. But, stuff happens. So my students actually had operating systems that I'd never seen before. I only done it on a Mac because I'm not clever. But I managed pretty okay on the Windows. I had never touched Linux before. And the really sad thing is that I felt that if I could Google it with them, I could learn alongside them. And also this will show that I'm one of their peers. I don't know everything, and you don't have to know everything to be a coach. One of my students took that very wrongly. I was the only female coach at the event, and she would actually go to the other coaches and be like, "Ugh, I got the female coach," which was so embarrassing for me. I felt like I had let down my entire gender and that I shouldn't have been there because I was giving women a bad name. But actually, it wasn't all that bad. The other ladies that I was teaching actually really enjoyed it and thanked me and contacted me afterwards and said, yeah, it felt like you were one of our peers. It felt like I could reach your level really fast, and you're already so amazing. So it doesn't hurt to not know everything. Besides learning loads yourself as a coach, because we're not going to know everything, you get to meet all these amazing people who have different perspectives and will actually teach you things, because maybe you're teaching them A, but they know a lot about B, and you get to also take this knowledge from them. And you make really long-lasting, amazing connections and relationships. So my other recommendation, which is one of my favorites, is to start a meetup. I wrote start a meetup, but I've been thinking about it, and it's more like just be around a meetup culture. I know it's not for everyone, so you might even do it an online meetup. But even so much as attending and inspiring people is such a great thing. I actually started a learning group in Vienna because there were no Ruby learning groups, and it's so much fun. It's very natural. We don't have this, I'm the organizer and therefore I'm superior to you. Everyone can organize a meetup. Everyone can bring in their own projects. We have people working on Sonic Pi, on octopods, on all kinds of fun things. And there's such great projects that come out of these meetups. Like, I don't know if you know, but there's Speakerinnen, an online platform for finding women speakers for tech events. There's also diversity tickets, which I believe helped to organize the diversity tickets for this very conference. And that just came out of a learning group, out of people who were not in tech and just attended a meetup every week and learned to make this amazing platform. Again, like with coaching, we grow alongside these people, so it's such an advantage to us just to go. This one is more aimed at people who have projects of their own, open source projects, and that is to create starter issues. The previous talk mentioned about lowering the barrier, and this is such a great way to lower the barrier. Some people like to create dummy issues that have already been solved. I'm not a big fan of that. I think it's a bit insulting when I feel like I've done this great thing, but actually they feel like, oh, it's very easy, we'll put it aside and leave it for them. To me, a starter issue is the best introduction to your project. It doesn't have to be something very simple. It doesn't have to be something very hard. I think it has to be something that is key, Something in the middle of your project that you've set aside that you feel is a good introduction to your project, and that will feel, even if it's the smallest thing, will leave that person feeling empowered and feeling that they have contributed so much. And they do. It's so worth it. There's actually a really great project called Your First PR, and you can send them your starter issues, and I believe they select them, and they will promote really great first PR starter issues. So all you have to do is contact them, and they will promote your starter issue and get people working on your project. And, I think this all boils down to being mindful. We forget that there is another person on the other side of that screen. There's so many other people from different backgrounds. You don't know their upbringing, you don't know their culture, you don't know what they're going through, and we tend to have our own mindset. We seem to think about our situation, and that's kind of how everyone has it. And again, on lowering the barrier, not everyone is a native English speaker. Just something as simple as using very simple language is so inclusive, because you're allowing people who are not native speakers to feel more comfortable with your project. You are benefiting yourself from making your project more approachable. And the same goes for skill levels. We tend to think that what we know, everyone must know, and that the way we write code is the end-all way of writing code. That's why I think it's really great that a lot of the talks from yesterday and today as well have touched upon these subjects like constraints, and even things just like people don't have the same skill level. Just write documentation. They're not going to understand what your code is. They won't want to deep dive into the core of your project. So if you have things like starter issues, if you have really great documentation, this makes your project inviting, and people will want to work on it, and people from all walks of life will want to work on it. And these are such small actions. This is one, it's a little bit funny for me to look back on it, but This was one of my favorite moments of Summer of Code. I got put on Hoodies Page on GitHub, and this was so exciting for me. I don't remember what I did that day. I don't remember when this happened, but I remember this was the happiest thing that day. This was my reaction. And I just went around to my entire team like, look, there I am. And this was pretty much Shelly's reaction. But it's these small actions that just make what we do so enjoyable, So, please do go out there, try coaching, try creating starter issues. Be mindful, start a meetup, attend a meetup, start a learning group. If you're excited about a technology, I don't know about you, but I'm very excited about trying NES, ROM hacking and Tiny Arcade, and us here, we're kind of a different level, aren't we? So if you are excited about these things, make them available to everyone. Write about it, tweet about it, make a video on it. Maybe you can just put slides. You don't have to be in the camera, but you have nothing to lose from doing these things, trying little things, and you have so much to gain. Thank you.